Hi guys, welcome to another LER electronics repair video. I was at the car boot sale, the flea market again on Sunday, and I found another old PC. Very dusty and dirty, not sure where this has come from. It's got like a beige coloured DVD writer or something in the front of it, so that kind of caught my eye. And this one is another PC with AGP, so anything with AGP catches my eye, and I have this bad habit of just buying it. This is a Asus motherboard, A7V600, is it? Yeah, looks like it. Let's zoom down a little bit. Yeah, it's Asus A7V600-X. I'm certain this is a AMD machine. I'm just looking at the CPU holder now. It looks like an AMD. It has a hard drive. It has two hard drives actually. They're kind of like, one's just lying around in here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do with this before anything else is to just remove these hard drives so we can get at it a little bit. Why this one is loose, I don't know. Both IDE, so a bit of age to it. Just take that off there, get rid of this. Yeah, we can see it a bit. I think it's probably an Athlon machine. In fact, I'm sure I've had this type of motherboard or similar before. So this one has 6 PCI, which is quite nice, and 1 AGP slot. Because really the only thing I'm interested in here is the motherboard, the processor. There's an AGP graphics card in here. I think I'll actually just take this one apart. I don't actually want the PC, and then it's easier to get everything on the board. We can get all this dirt and grime in here, and we can see what's actually working. Yeah. Here we have the motherboard. I've just given it a quick wipe over with a dry paintbrush. A little bloat gets the worst of the dust out of it. It looks like it needs recapping. So if you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 capacitors on the VRMs on the low voltage side, out of which 3 are visibly bad, and it's possible the other 2 are bad as well. Because they're all the same age, I'll just replace all 5 of them. But I think I'll actually try and power this one up just to show you that usually a motherboard will power up with capacitors bad. You might find the inductors get a bit warm. It's not particularly good for the MOSFETs, but in the interest of science, let's do it. Yeah. I'd imagine if it does run, it probably isn't properly stable unless we replace them, which I will do. So 6 PCIs I mentioned, 1 AGP. I think these full-size ATX motherboards tend to be a bit more collectible. I think retro enthusiasts tend to prefer them against the mini ATX, but hey, you guys can let me know, yeah. And I don't think the AMD ones of this era are worth as much as the P4. It's obviously a similar era, so we have IDE, we have 2 SATA, these rather unusual looking connectors are early SATA connectors, and this is typical of what you would find on a socket 478 Pentium 4, and to be quite honest, on some LGA 755s as well have both. I have an Asus P5 or something, P5 Deluxe that has both, and I'm sure plenty more do. What do we have? DDR400. Yeah, looks like DDR400. It's a single 512 meg strip, and it's a bit corroded. Can you see it here? But let's try it. Let's see what happens. We can always clean it or replace it. And as you imagine, to test this, I probably want to fit some more as well. I'm just looking to see where the 12 volt ATX connector goes. And you know, I don't recall actually having to unplug that when I took this apart, but you would think that there would be one. I'm not familiar with these boards. I think it is an AMD Athlon. No, do you know what, guys? I don't actually see. Where is it? Where have they hidden it? maybe this lot's all running from the 5 volts or from the 12 volts coming in here. No, definitely no sign of a 4 or 8 way extended ATX 12 volt connector, that's for sure. Okay, so we have that. Fan might clean up quite nicely. It seems like it spins. I think it's a fairly old one, this. I have 2 hard drives that came with it. So this one is a 80 gigabytes, I think, and this one's a 40. 80 gigabytes and 40 gigabytes, so fairly small. Not small enough to be really interesting. If you get smaller than like 8 gig, they tend to be rather sought after because they'll work on 486s and such like. Yeah, but we have those. Maybe have an OS. This is the graphics card, GeForce FX. I'm not sure exactly what model. CGN 348 TVD-1. I'm sure we can work it out from that. Actually, let's have a look. CGN 348 TVD. TVD. Should be enough. Yeah, that's found something. What is it? Oh, yeah. FX5200. 40 euros. Well, considering I actually paid him 15 euros for the whole machine, it seems that the graphics card's worth more than that. So that's a bonus to start with. We're not going to make a loss on this one, that's for sure. The last thing I got out of it is the DVD-ROM, which is an LG beige one, and I also have the LG rewriter to go with it, beige. These are fairly popular. They seem to fetch about £15–20 each on eBay. I've got quite a stack of these now. If you guys are interested, I'll go through them and test them all, and if I find any that are not working, you're interested in see if we can fix a few of them just for the fun of it. Or is that not fun, really? I don't know. Let me know what you think, eh? So yeah, let's power this up and let's see if it actually does anything. I've just taken the power supply out actually as well. So this we can see has 5 volts 20 amp. If you can see it there, maybe I just need to the focus a little bit, but 5 volts 20 amp, 12 volts at 7 amp. So they have quite a high output power on the 5 volts, which is nothing unusual. I just looked at a more modern one, and that also has 20 amps on the 5 volt. Well, let's connect the original PSU and see if this is working as well. It does have a 12 volts E80X connector on it, but I still can't see where it would fit on this board, so I have to assume it doesn't have it. So we won't worry too much about that. Because it's an unknown power supply, I've never tried it. I'm going to connect this via my light bulb current limiter. So I'll put the camera where you can see it to see what that does. And let's see where we go. We just want a power switch. I don't immediately see a speaker on here, so I'll put a little speaker on as well, yeah. I've just put the camera here, so this is the light bulb on the current limiter. I'll set it to limit. Now, I don't think this has active PFC on the power supply. If it did, then you would find that the bulb will flash on and off quite rapidly usually. Because you don't generally like it, but let's see what it does. So, a good one, you'd expect the bulb to come on and then effectively go dim. Okay? Yeah, like that. That's exactly what you'd expect a good one to do, so we can switch it directly to mains. I have a green light on the motherboard. And let's start it. Fan's a little bit rattly, but I have a blue light on my monitor. Oh, and this one's going to boot up. Yeah, aces. There we go, straight into the BIOS. This is very much like a P4 BIOS. It's booting, it's working, so I'll change the bad capacitors and then let's see if we can load an operating system on this. But you can see with the bad capacitors it does boot up, okay? So let's have a look to see what it actually is. I'm nowhere near as familiar with AMD processor socket types as I am with Intel, but after one of some sort, I guess. Yeah, it comes off. We need to get this off anyway to do the capacitors. Oh, it is in fact AMD XP 3333 megahertz. That's what it actually is. You see it quite clearly there. So it is in fact, I would say, is an Athlon. Yeah, AMD Athlon. There you go on the black sticker. So that's what we actually have in the board. This is very similar to the Socket 7, if you ask me. It looks a lot like. So this is 1999. So that gives you an idea of the age of this motherboard. Quite early for SATA if the board's as old as the processor. That does surprise me a little bit. I can't just recall when SATA came out, but thought it was a bit more than that. AMD XP 3000, as I say. So we can have a look to see if that's actually worth anything. But let's get these capacitors changed. So this I've shown you before. It's really easy to do. There are three obviously bad capacitors. Two here and one here. These two look like they're the same value, so I'm going to change all five of them. And I'm basically going to use a soldering iron and maybe a bit of hot air, the vacuum desolderer. I think that's probably the easiest way to do this. Generally I can just do this by hand, which is literally grab all the capacitors and pull them out of the board. Let's try some of the new solder I bought as well. So I might have to put a bit of flux, but it tends to block up the desoldering tool, so I prefer not to if I can avoid it. Basically I'm going to get a nice big blob of solder on the iron. So this is my nice big chunky BC3 tip. Warm up both ends of the capacitor at the same time, and then it should just pull out of the board. I can feel it coming loose now. Yeah, so there you are. So that just came out. It's as simple as that, guys. It really is, if you use the right tools. There's two more over here. I'm just going to have, let's see which way round they are. You have to be careful. You'd think the white is the ground, but it might not be on these. It's worth having a look. It looks like the positive is the white on these. We can double check before we fit the new ones anyway. You don't want to be putting them in the wrong way round, I'll tell you now, because you'll find out about it very quickly when you switch it on. Yeah, so just get onto this one. Bit awkward to get, but I've got it. Even more awkward to get at an angle where you guys can see what I'm doing. Yeah, another one out. And the other one is very close to it here. Okay, good sized blob. It may help you to use a bit of flux, or we'll see. Hear it creaking? It's going to come out. I slipped a little bit, but I can clean any mess up afterwards. That's not a problem. If you get little solder balls on the track, a little bit of braid, or just, in this case, just clean it up, yeah? So that's three of them out. And then we'll take the other two, which are the same type, and we'll test them. Let's test them and see if they really are bad or good. So that's these two here. This is one of them. So I'm going to warm up both legs. Bit of fresh solder. Same on the other one. I have to say this cheap solder seems to be working okay. I'm still not totally convinced it's as good as the other stuff, but it hasn't kind of let me down, yeah. So I mean, what can I say? It seems to be okay. Let's pull it out. Yeah, that one's out. Get the last one. You can eat creaking again. Yeah, it's out. Okay, so that's all the capacitors out. That's a fairly easy part of the job. The harder part is to clean the holes, and you've seen how I do this before, but I'll do it again. So the only real way to do this is with a vacuum desoldering tool and hot air together, basically. Anything else, you're just making life hard for yourself. Yeah, you're making life hard for yourself. So 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can see where they've come out. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a fifth one somewhere. I'll find it. Vacuum desoldering tool. I always clean it before I put it away, by the way, because if you don't, it clogs up. Yeah, so it should be good. And you can see it's not doing it. Yeah, you can see it's not desoldering. Now that's normal for motherboards. The way to get it to work, you've seen it before, I guess, if you've watched the channel. A bit of hot air, not enough to melt the solder, just enough to warm the area of the board up a bit. And this is really the only way you can do this without a lot of hard work. Yeah. So let's try. So we get the two together, and now we can see it's just clean. Yeah. Yeah. That's what makes the difference, guys. The last one, yeah. Okay. I just can't advise any other way to do it other than this. I'm going to make a video shortly to show which tools I use most in the workshop. I've been running the channel now for nearly 18 months, so I know exactly what I'm using for repair work, and I think that'll make an interesting video. Seems to be one here as well, by the way, which I maybe didn't get. The area of the board's still actually warm, so it's going to go. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have the hot air, you could, I would imagine, push it over some sort of hot plate for a while to warm it up. But this is what does the job. Let's have a look at these capacitors. So they are 1500 6.3 volts. I'm sure they're all the same. Yeah, same. So they're all the same value. I'm going to test them all, as I mentioned, and we'll see if the ones that look good are actually bad. But I'm actually going to fit the new ones while the motherboard is still warm. It's much easier to do. So rather than letting the board cool down, I'm going to fit them now. I'm just going to check to see which way around the markings on the board are. So usually you would think the white bit is in fact the ground. But on these older boards, it's not always the case. So ground, we'll just go into here, yeah. Now let's have a look. So white is not ground, yeah. Yeah. That's ground, that's ground. That's ground, yeah. And then there was one over here somewhere. This one. And just to make sure we've got all the right ones, we can go to the whites and they should all connect to each other. You could fit polymer capacitors, and if you see on here again, there's more spaces. You can meter them out, and if they're all in parallel, you can fit a larger number of lower value polymers if you wanted to. But I have some of the original value, so I'm going to put those in. The replacement ones I have a little bit wider, but it shouldn't really be a problem getting them to fit. Again, obviously just keeping in mind the polarity. So yeah, they fit in okay. If I'm struggling where I have two very close together, I can always put one in a different position. It's not a problem. And you see, these are just going straight into the board because I clean the holes out. Yeah, because we actually did the job. It makes it much easier. Another one over here. positive to the white as we proved. Does not fit in. These two are a bit close together, so I may have to end up putting one somewhere else. Positive to the white, but those two went pretty well together, so it should be okay. I'll have to order some more of this value soon, I think. Okay. Yeah, they fit in pretty well. Okay, let's get these soldered in. As I say, the board is still fairly warm, and it makes it a lot easier to do it. Just spread the legs slightly so they don't fall back out. And then we can kind of push on them as we solder them, and then when they'll sit flat, yeah. Okay, there we go. Just a last check to make sure I have the positive to the white. Yeah. Yeah. Check on this one, yeah. Yeah, they're all good to go. Okay. It's just a matter of just, you know, you can, when you solder the first leg, you can just make sure it's sitting flat. And once you get the first one, the second one will be fine. So just straighten that up a little bit. Bit of solder on it. Yeah. Push it down flat. And the other one should just go fine. Okay. So again, we'll just push it. Yeah, I felt it going a little bit further. Second one should go in fine. Okay. This one, same thing. Yep, sitting flat. If you've seen me do this a few times now and you're actually watching it, you should know how to do this. Yeah, you shouldn't have any problem doing this. Last one. If you find you're not soldering well, just reheat the board a little bit with hot air, just get it warm again. If it's all cooled down before you finish. A bit like the pie and chips, yeah, just stick it in the microwave or the pizza. If it cools down too much before you finish it, yeah. Always does the job. You see that there was just a little bit awkward to get that one. A little bit of flux on that one. Flux never hurts. Okay, so there you go. My technique is to solder them first, cut all the legs short, and then come back along and just touch each joint again. It puts a nice domed head, if you like, a head on the soldered joint. Doesn't help the electrical conduction, just looks a bit nicer. So that's my way of doing it. I know some of you guys have your own ways, yeah. Not a problem, yeah. We've all got our own preferred ways of doing it. Okay. Looks good to me. Well, there they are, they're all on there. We can just double check, make sure we haven't done anything stupid and put a short on the voltage rail, the V core. Just easiest way is to go across one of the capacitors that isn't actually fitted. Yeah, it's just reading the resistance, I think that's okay. I was a little bit surprised actually, I thought it would read lower than that. Without the CPU, and I expected it to actually read much higher resistance than that actually. Yeah, 33. That's interesting. I thought that would read higher. But this is a low voltage rail, so I mean 33 ohms, you know, whatever voltage this is, 2.5 volts or something. That's not so much current, you know. Go to another one. probably what this is probably the north bridge is on the same voltage rail, and that's what I'm reading. Right, let's look at these capacitors. Here's the ESR meter. We'll do the domed ones first. So this is clearly a bad one. It doesn't actually matter. You know, I always said I always put the positive to positive and negative to negative, but this thing feeds AC, so it actually doesn't matter in the slightest. It's just me. So that's 1 ohm. That's a bad one. Just to prove the point, because we were discussing this on another video, all you need to know about ESR meters to fix stuff. And it reads basically the same, yeah. So that's a bad capacitor. If you haven't watched the All You Need to Know About ESR meters, I think you might enjoy it, because not only am I actually using it to test capacitors, I'm using it to measure inductors, and I'm actually using it to find short circuit MOSFETs and VRMs as well. So another bad one, domed. Another bad one, domed. So let's have a look at this one. And then we can just test one of the same as the new ones. I didn't bother to test the new ones because they're all new capacitors. I trust them. About the same. What do these read? So these visibly look okay, but because they're the same value and the same age as the bad ones, I thought we should just change them. Let's have a look. That's a good low ESR capacitor actually. I'm not sure I would totally trust it, but it is a good one. And now about this one. Yeah, another good one. They may even be better than the new ones. These are the ones I've fitted. Chong X or Chong. Sounds like some sort of fried rice dish, but they work. ESR's good. Okay, so let's put our CPU back in this, and then let's see if we can actually boot an operating system. I often just rest the heatsink on top of a CPU when I'm testing it, but guys, don't do it with these ones. They just do not like it. Because they have such a small surface area on the die, you need to clamp the CPU cooler onto these properly, yeah, so don't do it with these, don't just rest it on. It wants a little bit more heatsink compound. I'll put a bit of this stuff on it. Should do, doesn't need much, it's not a very big die. And then just replace the cooler. Same applies to like Pentium 3s and any really the CPUs that have a small die like that. And we're ready to go. I've put the RAM back in. The capacitors are a bit uneven. As I say, this is because they didn't really fit into the holes properly. If you were being a perfectionist or it was some valuable retro board, then yeah, you should fit the some that actually fit properly. So let's see, we'll power it on. Standby is on, the green light, you can't see it. Starting up again, and it's going to boot, so we're going to get a screen, yeah. Okay, you can see it. So I'll check the CMOS battery. If that's okay, then I'll boot the thing up off the hard drives. I think I'll go to the BIOS and just tell it to use the defaults. So let's have a quick look at this CMOS battery. There, now you can see it, I think. So we want at least 3 volts on a good one. Let's have a look. And it's like 0.46 for a volt, so that's not really good. Put a new one in there. And we're reasonably ready to go. So power on, start. Let's see if we can see the picture from this angle on the monitor for you. You got the bleep. Oh, and there we go. Nice old school BIOS. I like these old BIOSes. Yeah. So we'll I think we'll just try to set the defaults for now. What speed was this CPU? I'm just trying to remember. Was it 3000, I think? Oh no, well, it doesn't give me that, so it gives me up to 2600. Yeah, let's go for it. Let's go for it, yeah. F5, set the BIOS defaults, load the default configuration, yes. Oh, it's on 2600. F10 for save. Let's see if it actually boots up again with those settings. Well, maybe it didn't like that. Yeah, maybe it didn't like that. A little bit of overclocking, I think. So let's see if we can just... Oh, it switched itself off. Is it going to restart and set itself back? Let's have a look. See how advanced this thing is, basically, yeah? Let's restart it. Well, guys, I seem to have killed it. Yeah, I seem to have killed it. It won't start again. Oh dear, what have I done to it? Let's power it off. Didn't like that, did it? I'm guessing there's a clear CMOS or something on here that'll hopefully get us out of this little mess I've made. Yeah, looks like it's here. So I've switched it off, the power's off. We'll put the jumper on here. And we can always take the CMOS battery out as well. That says clear real-time clock, but maybe that will do what we want it to do. Switch it back on and see if it will do anything now. Well, it starts up again, that's a good sign. This time I'm not going to mess with the BIOS. Yeah, we get into the BIOS again, so it didn't like that which I did to it. Should it boots to the BIOS with a bit of luck. There we go. So now I'm just going to leave it for the moment. We'll just save the defaults. We'll escape out of that. Yeah, we'll save the defaults. Okay, and then we'll save an exit, and if it should reboot this time, and then let's put the original hard drives on and see what it does. It looks like the 80GB drive is set to master, so these have jumpers on them on the old IDE if you're not used to them, and that is actually set to master. So we'll connect them on the same ribbon. I'm guessing the other ribbon was going to the two optical drives anyway, and it looks like we can have a look to be sure, but it looks like the other one's going to be set to slave. So that's one of the... Put the cable on the right end. Power's off at the moment, by the way. That's one of the hard drives. That's the master. Then we have the other one, which the jumper is in the second position there, which this tells us if we look at the little chart. There's something written on here, but that is slave. Yeah, looks like it's slave. Actually, according to the chart, none of them on a slave. Yeah, all missing. Let's boot up off that one first and let's see if it actually works. Then we can have a play around with the second one. Well, we have the hard drive on. Is it going to boot? I'm thinking the BIOS will probably pick the hard drive up automatically. Well, looks like it doesn't want to boot from that one, that's for sure. Yeah, error with a disk. Control Alt Delete. Okay. Let's go into the BIOS and see if it actually sees that drive. I actually can't hear it spinning. That's me hitting the delete, try and get into the BIOS. Okay, so primary master, auto. It's found it. It's found it. Okay, it's found it. Maybe this BIOS just is an old one and it doesn't automatically detect them like that. Let's save that and see if it works. I mean, bear in mind one of these drives was just rattling around loose inside the case, basically. Wasn't bolted down to anything. Yeah, the drive's clicking, but it's not spinning. I can hear it clicking. Yeah, I think that disc literally is not spinning. And my camera is spinning. Let's try the other one. Wow, I tried to unplug the drive and you can see that the IDE connector just came apart. It broke up and part of it is now jammed in the back of the hard drive. So possibly actually we have a faulty cable here. So I'll see if I should be able to get us out of here. Yeah, it's out of there. Let's try it again with another cable. No, it sounds like I can hear it. Can you hear it? Primary master drive fails. So that's jammed, I think. We could have some fun with that if you want to. We can have a play with it on another video. Are you interested? I don't forget to do anything with it. I think it's not even spinning. Okay, let's try the other hard drive. I've left the jumper set as it already was. I'm not sure that's a valid configuration, but let's just try it. So we'll boot this one up. Okay. It's not going to boot from it. I'll set this one. Oh, hold on. What's it doing? What is it doing? It says it's booting from it. Ah, it's booting it. Okay. So this one with the jumper where it shouldn't be appears to be the OS. The other one I'm guessing was just a data drive. But we could play with it if you fancy. I think it doesn't rotate. Well, at least this one seems to have a password on it. Let's see if we can actually get in or not. The USB mouse doesn't seem to be working. That's not unusual. Yeah, keyboard seems to be not working as well. I find this sometimes with old machines that you have to put a PS2 keyboard and mouse on to get them to work. Then once you get into XP, no, it's already done it. Sometimes you have to do that. Then when you get into XP once, you'll find that the USB will work after that. Is there a password? No, there isn't a password. There isn't a password. Yeah. The system working isn't valid. Modify the configuration to work with your computer or something like that. It's saying, yeah. Nod 32. Anybody know what that is? Nod 32. So yeah, it's working. We won't have a nosy around at it because it's somebody else's life, but it just goes to show you what I find on these computers. I think one more thing to do, and that's just to try some RAM in the other slots. I've put 3 strips of RAM in. I put 3 512s because I didn't have 3 1 gigs to go in there, but apparently it will support up to 3 gig of RAM, so it appears to be working. Let's have a look to see if it's actually worth anything. That's a good question. Does it have any value? So we have the motherboard A7V600. I don't think they have any great value, these, but they may become, you know, if we just keep hold of them for a while. Let's have a look. Well, yeah, like £40 plus 13 from postage from Poland, yeah. But there's only one on there, so it's not like there's lots of these things around. It's whether people want them yet. So let's go into the advanced and let's see if we can see any that have actually sold. So we go for sold listings, search. Yeah, but it's only fetched £5. So yeah, these things at the moment don't seem to have any value at all. But you see another one fetched 20. So what can you say? Yeah, that was with the fan and the processor. So it's worth somewhere between 5 and 20. Yeah, maybe the CPU is actually worth a bit more if it's the 3000. Let's have a look. Oh, well, 20, and that's sold. That is sold, yeah, for 20. So another one sold for 15. Okay, so it looks like and I'm guessing that's a different one. Actually, that one, is that a different one? £84, 25. Okay, so these CPUs have a bit of value to them. Add to that the fact that we have the GeForce FX as well, and we have the motherboard. We've definitely got more than €15 worth. I'm going to keep hold of this stuff and then see what it's worth in 5 years' time, I think. So guys, another one saved from the landfill. Just wanted a little bit of TLC, change the capacitors. It seems to be working fine. I'm not familiar at all with the overclocking settings. When I set it to 2600, it certainly didn't seem to like that. I guess some of you guys are going to be in the comments below and tell me about that, yeah, and then I'll know for next time. So hope you enjoyed that one. Fairly short. I'll be looking around the car boot sale in all the coming weeks to see if I can find any more like this or older ones, and I will see you all soon on another Learning Electronics Repair video. Chat for now, guys.